Welcome to the VectorVest special presentation, this week titled Roll with the Changes. My name is Todd Shaffer, Manager of Research for VectorVest, and I will be your presenter this evening. The potential changes that lie ahead, both politically and economically, will have implications on the market's performance. While we can't predict what will happen next, we can use the VectorVest system to quickly analyze those changes and roll with them as the market looks for new leadership. We'll find that leadership by recognizing which industries and sectors may profit or crumble under the changing landscape. There have been countless articles written already on what industries may prosper or falter based on the expectation of change. But here at VectorVest, we don't predict. We analyze, and VectorVest makes it easy to find exactly what industries and sectors are reacting and when. The key, of course, is to go with the flow at every turn. Even if you buy a good stock in a falling industry or market, there's still a good chance that that stock will move against you. So let's buy great stocks that are rising in price, that are in rising industry groups, in rising markets. That puts the odds in our favor at every turn. We go with the flow. Buying a good stock in a weak industry or falling market is like trying to walk up the wrong way on an escalator. No matter how strong you are, you're most likely going to get pulled down with the crowd. Instead, why fight the crowd? Why not let the crowd move you forward? The same is true for stocks. If the overall market's rising and the other stocks in that same industry are rising, the likelihood that your stock will rise is greater. I can use the program to demonstrate that, but before I do, let me set you up for success. Hopefully this is a quick review, but the stocks that make up the overall market are categorized. The biggest or broadest category is their sector. Each business sector is then broken down into industry groups. Within each industry group are the stocks that make up that group. For example, one sector could be everything dealing with computers. Within that sector could be the industry group of computer makers, and all of the companies that make computers are found in that industry, like Apple or HP, and so on, like computer memory devices, Western Digital and Seagate, or internet providers, both e-commerce, like eBay and Amazon, or service providers, Google and Sohu. So how do you find great stocks in rising industries? Well, it starts with identifying those hot industries. We know that RT measures the short-term price trend of a stock. When they're grouped together into their industry or sector, we calculate the average RT value for the group as well. So RT holds the key. The highest ranked are in the strongest uptrends. They have the highest RT values. So let's say you have a list of all the industries ranked from best to worst. Those at the top of the list are called high flyers. These are the groups that are in established trends, and the strongest trends are at the top of the list. Of course, there are also groups that are moving higher and lower in the list all the time. We can identify these guys with a technique called movers and shakers. Using that method, you'd look for the stocks in the industries that are moving up in the ranks quickly. They may not be at the top yet, but they're moving higher. But you ultimately will still need a way to recognize those industries, and here at VectorVest, we've made that incredibly easy for you. Breaking off into the program, let's go to the Viewers tab. And you see in our toolbar that we have, yes, the stock viewer that you're probably familiar with, but we also have an industry viewer and a sector viewer. So if I click on the sector viewer, here are the sectors. If I double click on the sector, I can see the industries that are included in that sector. And then if I double click the industry, I can see the stocks that make up the industry, and of course are in the sector as well. So that's the overview of the structure. For the purposes of our demonstration, let's go to the industry viewer, the thinner slice of the analysis. And we can see on the industry basis, we're sorted now by RT, so the highest RT industry currently is the insurance accidental health industry in the insurance sector. Here are the average values for all the stocks that are in that industry with an average RT score of 1.69. And if I scroll to the right, you'll see its RT ranking. It's currently ranked number 1. So the highest rank, if you will have the lowest absolute number. But here's why this is important and how powerful this can be. If I double click on the industry, I see that there are 3 stocks within the industry group. How many sell ratings do I have? None. In fact, if I look at the RT values, each of the 3 stocks are in price uptrend. Let's take a look at the next industry, aerospace and defense electric. If I double click here, I have 6 in this industry group, none of them sell rated, all of them in uptrend. Our third industry is the ETF sector energy industry group. Here we have 42 stocks, so let's expand our view to include all 42. And if I scroll down the list, no sell rated, in fact, everybody in strong upward price trend. Now here's an interesting one, transportation airlines. 25 stocks found in this industry group, so let's expand our list. How many sell ratings? Not a 1. How many stocks in downtrend? Well, 2 that have an RT analysis below 1. But look at the fundamentals here, right? We know how the airline industry has been hit with this COVID crisis. But look at the fundamental strength of these companies, and yet they're all in very nice price performance by virtue of their RT analysis. A great illustration of how when the markets pursue an industry or a sector, the broad cross-section of that industry or sector tends to benefit. So let's test our theory from a different perspective. Let's resort our industry list by RT ascending. Contra ETFs, the strongest downtrend currently. Let's skip ETFs and go to the mining gold silver industry. Double click it. How many buy rated stocks? 1. How many stocks in uptrend? 1. What's our next industry? Drug sector wholesale distributors. We have 8 stocks in the industry. How many buys? 2. How many in uptrends? I'll resort for us to make it easier. 3 of the 8. And finally, in the drug sector, ethical industry, 33 components here. Let's look at them all. How many buy ratings? 4. How many stocks in uptrend? 8 out of 33. You're starting to get a feel, right? Even though some of these stocks have very acceptable fundamentals. Even the strong companies are being pulled down because the industry is in decline. And so doesn't it make sense that if I'm going to buy stocks, I would prefer to buy stocks that are in industries that are rising? And by the way, I want to focus in those top RT industries. I want to focus on those stocks that have the strongest VST scores, the strongest combination of fundamental and technical strength. So these are our top industries currently, but of course the market is always looking for the next best value. So let's look at the graph of the accidental and health insurance industry. I'll right click and look at the industry graph. Here we're looking at the graph of the industry. So these are the average values for all the stocks in that industry. For our purposes here, though, I want you to also consider that we can add to our graph layout the RT ranking. So we know that currently this industry is ranked number 1. But we can see that back here in the end of March, we were ranked 215th out of 221 industries. So wouldn't it be nice to be able to identify industries that are making the march higher? And of course, you'll see industries that were leaders fall out of that leadership position. So this is the idea of movers and shakers, identifying industries that are improving their position relative to the other RT rankings of the other industries. And we can see the RT of the industry improving over time. And I just want to remind you, as the RT improves, the ranking number is falling as you move toward number 1. So let's close out of this graph. I want to identify for you 4 methods for finding great stocks in the hottest industries. So the first way we've already demonstrated. Find top RT industries either on the gadgets on the home page or in the industry and sector viewers. Our second method would be to use the Unisearch tool to cherry pick buy rated stocks. So let's move back into the program and let's open the Unisearch tool. And you notice at the top of the list of searches, there are 3 groups of delta searches: industries, sectors, and stocks. Delta is a percentage change of any value. So we're going to focus on the delta searches industries. So this analysis is going to look for industries whose price or RT values have changed the most over any given time frame. As an example, let's start with our first one, 10-day price delta. So we're looking for industries. So when I run this search, it's going to show me the industries that have had their average price on a percentage basis over the last 10 days brought to the top of the list. So I'll run the search. Here are our results, and we can see that the crypto stocks industry within the financial sector is up 100% over the last 10 days. So on an average price basis, that's our fastest moving industry over the last 10 days. By the way, if we scroll to the right, 151st in all of the industries. So here's the case of a mover and shaker on an average price basis that's making the biggest move higher in the rank, although it's lower overall in the list currently. If we use RT, we're going to look for the percentage change now of the RT value. A little bit different from price, right? So if I run this search, Petroleum Field Services has made the biggest gain in its average RT value, up 52%. Currently, they're ranked 34th overall in the industries. In either case, if you want to find stocks that are potential plays for you within that industry, just double-click the industry, and there are the component stocks sorted in VST order descending. And of course, I'm only looking by default at the top 10 of the 49 stocks in that industry. Now, you still want to be careful here. If I expand that out to include all of the stocks in the list, here's why you want to be careful. I do have pink sheets listed. This is all the stocks in the database. So some are penny stocks, some are pink sheet stocks, some may have very thinly traded volumes. And let me maximize the window here so we can scroll to the right and see that some have average volumes that are a little thin. Particularly if we scroll down, some fairly thinly traded issues here. So you want to be careful of that. And of course, you also want to make sure you're still diversifying your portfolio across multiple industries and or sectors. Within the Unisearch tool itself, we defaulted to the 10-day, but different time frames are available to us. So for instance, I can come into the value and I can look over days and weeks. I can also look for sorted values, or I can look for them to be greater than or less than or equal to a specific value. So quite a bit of flexibility in this tool. Well, perhaps you're thinking, well, couldn't I use the Unisearch tool to help me limit or filter out those stocks that have low volumes or are not on the major exchanges? And the answer is, well, of course. That brings us to our third methodology, filter your favorite search by top RT industries. So going back into the Unisearch tool, if we move from the Delta Search's industries search, industries and sectors operate exactly the same. Now we can go to Delta Search's stocks, and notice we're now returning stocks, not industries. So here we see stock-based searches just looking for delta changes in the price action of the stock, but if we scroll lower, we find this search, rising business sectors. Clicking on the search, I've populated the search parameters. And now notice that I can limit the price value, the average volume, stock recommendation, filtering out the pink sheets. And now I'm looking for stocks that are in the sector that is equal to the highest 5 by their 10-day price delta. So again, there are several ways we can approach this. First of all, I don't have to look at sectors, I can look at industries. And so I go industries, filtered by industry group. The operator, equal or does not equal, so we'll say equals. And here's the power. I can go to sorted industries, and notice I can look for stocks now that are in only the top 5 or 10 industries by virtue of the industry RT or VST score. I can look for the stocks that are in the bottom 5 and 10 industries by virtue of their score. Or if I hit custom, I can choose my own values and my own indicator. But of course, we're interested in the industry's RT value. When I run this search, notice I'm looking at a list of stocks, and so therefore that list will be in VST order. If I scroll to the right, I'll get rid of our toolbar here. Notice that I'm pulling all the stocks from the top 10 RT industries, and they're sorted by VST. So I have duplications of the industries and sectors. So you still want to apply diversification methodologies to this list or this search result. So remember, these now were the high flyers. We can also modify our search to find the movers and shakers. So I'm still looking for industry groups, but now I want to go to the top delta industries. Now I can look for the industries that have had the biggest percentage change in their price or their RT value over time. So for instance, the highest 10 industries by virtue of their 10-day price delta or their 10-day RT delta. Of course, I can go to custom and specify my own values. Running this search, now I'm seeing stocks that are in the top 10 industries that have the fastest changing or fastest rising RT values. Again, that list of stocks is sorted by their VST score. And that's our fourth methodology, filtering our favorite search by the top RT delta industries. And of course, you can apply the same filtering to your favorite search. So moving back into the program, in the Unisearch tool, if your favorite search were, for instance, Chappell's Champs, operating out of the Searches Prudent folder, find Chappell's Champs. Here's the default Chappell's Champs search. Now we simply add an additional line to our base search, stocks, filtered by industry group, equals, in this case, our top 10 industries by virtue of their RT score, the high flyers. So this will limit the search result to only the stocks that are in those industries. And here are our top 5. So those are the top 4 ways to have the Unisearch tool help us find the best performing industries and sectors and the stocks within those. But of course, there's also a lot of benefit to just keeping a constant pulse of the market by identifying which industries are currently favored within the market. and favoring the stocks that are in those industries. Now let me close the loop also. Let's go to the stock viewer. Because now you can see the power of the stock viewer. Here we have the default VST sort of the top stocks currently in the database. Look at the stock. It's in the industry information below. You can see the average value for the stocks in that industry group. So Enphase Energy is in the electronic semiconductor equipment industry, which is in a nice strong uptrend. If I double click on Enphase, I can see the other 42 stocks that are within the industry group. And you'll consistently see top VST stocks are best of breed stocks within their industry group. It's hard to go wrong when you buy high VST rated stocks in rising industries in a rising market. And today you learned how to do just that. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.